Of arguments today at the Arizona Supreme Court over a blood sample that was used to arrest a man police believe killed a young Scottsdale woman almost a decade ago in a very high-profile case. 12 News journalist Colleen Sikora in court today. So what happened there today, Colleen?
Well, the attorneys for Ian Mitchum say the blood sample used by police to link him to the murder of Allison Feldman wasn't intended to be used for identification, making it an illegal search, a violation of his constitutional rights. But prosecutors argue that blood sample was evidence in a past crime, and that DNA evidence doesn't change. In court again.
I did this for Allison.
Over a blood sample, counsel and the courts have disagreed.
They're trying to figure out how to decide the law, not only for this case, but for all the hundreds of cases that will come after.
In 2015, Allison Feldman was murdered at her home in Scottsdale. It was DNA evidence police used from a 2015 DUI that helped connect Ian Mitchum to the scene.
We are 100% confident we have the right suspect.
A Maricopa County judge would throw it out, and the Court of Appeals would again allow it to be used at trial, but trial delayed again for an appeal to the Arizona Supreme Court.
Law enforcement is supposed to ask for permission when conducting a search, not forgiveness after the fact.
Attorneys for Mitchum arguing the blood sample wasn't obtained legally.
That would be no different than if all of us just had our blood drawn right now and then put into tubes, and then they tested all of us to see who might be at any number of crime scenes.
But prosecutors argue that evidence is evidence.
There is not a reasonable expectation of privacy in an STR DNA profile that is developed from evidence that police law.
Still, justices left with questions.
That we would bless or allow the police to collect consent samples and then years later use them for identity purposes, to me is extremely chilling. So what are the boundaries here?
The state is not arguing that we can do anything with this evidence.
Arguing they would have inevitably gotten Mitchum's DNA after he was convicted on other unrelated felony charges in 2022.
It's functionally different than other evidence. If you go into a house without a warrant and find evidence in there, you can't repeat that. But DNA is immutable. It is different. Whether I take a sample today, tomorrow, or the next day, it will be the same. The result will be the same.
Still, Mitchum's attorneys argue the ends don't justify the means.
It may be evidence, but that doesn't mean that the police can break all of the rules while they're doing it. Just like they can't, when they're arresting somebody, they can't break their legs in the process.
The process to justice for Allison Feldman's father, Harley.
It's a long process. It's frustrating as a victim.
Continuing almost 10 years later with the decision in the Arizona Supreme Court's hands.
We have the right person that murdered my daughter, I believe, and we want a conviction.
And we're now waiting on the justice's ruling. We're told the court's taking an average of 8 weeks right now to issue rulings. Of course, that could change, but that puts that sometime around late November, Troy.
Yeah, and you really feel for Allison's family for sure. All right, Colleen, here's something I don't understand. Let's say that you go to be a bus driver for an elementary school and you give your fingerprints as part of a background check, and all of a sudden those fingerprints show up at some crime scene. Would police not be able to use those?
So I think that that's kind of the argument the prosecutors were making today, right? That the evidence of the blood sample is evidence, right? It's evidence in a past crime. And so that is like any other evidence that they would carry, whether that's fingerprints, whether that's something else that they've collected at a scene and used in trial. It's evidence that can be tested and used here.
Yeah, and it was there, and they used it. It's going to be very interesting to see what they decide. And the one thing you would hate to see if this man is guilty, for him to get off on a technicality, but that's down the line. Colleen, thank you.